What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 295 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR, my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
I said the word opinions, by the way. Opinions may vary, but it kind of came out as opinions. So it was there.
Yeah.
Most of it was there. We'll just move on. Pretend it didn't happen. It did happen. No, pretend it did happen. That I said it correctly. That's what we're going to go with.
Okay, sure.
We're going to go right with that. It's just you and me this week, but it's also not just you and me this week.
Mhm.
It's also you and not me
Yeah.
and someone else this week.
Right.
We're deviating, doing a little bit different because I was a little bit busy and you needed to take care of something and had an opportunity. So we're gonna lead right into that because you had a really neat opportunity to chat with someone that we've been trying to talk to for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to let you talk about what it is.
Last week I was wincing a little bit when you were doing, the spooky's done. We're done with all the spooky. Halloween's over. And I'm like, you know I scheduled this. This is already scheduled. It's happening on Tuesday. But as you may have heard from at least 3 episodes in the past, I'm a big fan of the game Dead by Daylight, where you get to play as survivors or the killer who's trying to kill them, and they're based off of many different archetypes of murderers and horror movies and legends and things like that. And recently they've been adding licensed characters in now too. Most recent, just like days after I talked to the creative director of Dead by Daylight, Dave Richard, did Freddy Krueger get released from Nightmare on Elm Street. And I now regret not asking more questions about that because it's like a new game mechanic, and I only had time to play one round, and I never saw him because I was really terrified and I didn't want to get anywhere near him. But I'm sure you'll hear more about that from me in the future. But I was able to talk with him a little bit, and he gave me some of his time, but it was midday, so JR was at work, and I was like, do you mind if I take this just by myself, because it's the only opportunity we'll have.
Yeah, I'd rather miss out on it and have something than just, oh well, we couldn't make it work. So I'm glad it was able to happen, and I get to listen to it now. So
yeah.
So we're gonna play Alex's chat with Dave from the Dead by Daylight team. I've heard a little snippet of it so far, and it sounds like I remember because we saw this game at PAX 2 years ago. 3 years
I
ago.
wasn't with you two years ago.
And we saw it then. And we told you about it.
And Colin was playing it.
Yeah,
he was hyped about it.
And it was one of those games that always had a line. We tried to get in line at the very end, right before we left 2 years ago at PAX, but we couldn't. It was too long. And
Colin described it as the Alex game.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. 100%. What's the premise? Oh, so Alex, yeah, okay.
There's a character named the Trapper who uses bear traps in the game. My doorbells currently are bear traps, by the way. So,
and you did no, I assure you, you heard that correctly. Doorbells.
But Dave was super cool, really fun to talk to. It was a good talk, and without further jabber, here it is. Okay, so right now I have Dave Richard joining me from Dead by Daylight. He's the creative director of the game, which I've been playing a whole lot. You've heard Colin talk about it about 2 years ago after PAX East, and then I had to talk about it again after last year at PAX East when I got to play it for the first time. And in addition to that, in June, it was released on PlayStation 4, where I've been playing it almost nonstop. Dave, thank you so much for joining me.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
If we can start at the beginning, what was your initial idea for the game? What made you decide, we're missing a horror genre, or the aspect of a player versus player, of a killer versus survivor?
Right. So I have to say that this idea we've been playing with for quite some time here at the studio. Actually, I'd say that almost 10 years we've been toying with ideas of going into horror and, controlling a killer, having multiplayer scenarios within that genre. And what really was the trigger or the inspiration was game of cat and mouse, obviously, and hide and seek. And we knew there was something quite special in there and into the horror that needed exploring.
Okay. Which would make it different from like other horror games, was really just like a slash fest where it's, you know, commonly one character versus an army of NPCs or something.
Right. And I mean, at the time we started all of this, even controlling the slasher or the monster itself was not something that existed or that we could see everywhere, or enough, anyways, for us. We wanted to be able to play that role, but we also wanted to, when playing a survivor, really get scared and facing an opponent that's totally unpredictable. So that's what makes an horror multiplayer so engaging for us, is that the killer is human and will think as such. So it's the smartest killer that you can face.
When I got to play the demo at PAX East, waiting in line, watching other players, because I'm not all that familiar to PAX. That was my second trip, I believe.
Right.
And like, there's so many games around, and you have to put on your headphones to make sure you're inside the game. And watching players flinch when they miss a generator repair skill check.
Skill check, yeah.
Yeah. And like the generator like explodes and like the sound gets them and like they flinch. Like I've seen them like move in their chair. And I'm like, that's hilarious. What's wrong, guys? But then when I knew I could play it at home, I was like, oh, am I not going to get that if I'm not wearing my headphones?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun aspect. And also like since it's a demo, you don't have to get too deep into it. You just pick your character, and the person running the booth was like, well, you chose the Wraith and he can disappear or reappear. He's an invisible thing. And like, that's really all I got, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, obviously the game is much, much deeper, and you need a lot of practice to, and skill to get through. But yeah, at PAX, it needs to be fast.
So when you're planning out a game like this, how far ahead do you have to look? Like, in the way back, it's like, well, you finish the game and then you're done. You beat the game and you can replay it. But now there's level progression, and there's getting your prestige, and and gaining your blood web. Like, was that still a concept early on in your original planning, or did that develop over time?
So at the very beginning, it's not something that we thought of, but we developed a game by knowing that we would play for a long time and needed to keep it fresh. So for example, the very beginning, mechanics such as procedural level generation, random placement of objects, and the fact that you don't know who you're going to face, so like the killer's a mystery until you face him in the level, that was core, and we knew that this will make the game replayable for a long time. And then as soon as we started working on the meta aspect of the game, so leveling up, the loadout and stuff like that, we had really we gave ourselves the mandate to make it close to infinite. So that's where the blood web was designed. So a way to progress that every time your prestige is going to be different. That was really important to us. And then all sort of different components, were brought in the design to make sure that players would be able to play for a long time. We also knew before release that we would add more content as we go, that this would be a live product, and that we would be working on it for as long as we could. So we brought in the planning, all the mechanics to allow us to create this content forever, and then add more depth to the game and more components for the player to play with.
That's fantastic. We'll get into some of the planning a little later, because there was recently a big announcement made last week, which is pretty cool. So things like for the cat and mouse game, did that really evolve into the maps that you have now, or like did it start in a different kind of area, like more of a maze, or was it like, no, we'll have like a farmhouse with some land, or an insane asylum?
Well, the very first level that we created were in the Macmillan estate. So the industrial set that is in the game right now was the first prototypes that we did, and we kept pretty much everything as is. So it was pretty spot on. So when we, I guess like the first thing at the very beginning were how much procedural or modular terrain we would be able to do with the tech and time that we had. So right off the bat, we had to cut things like it's going to be, a fully generated terrain. That's not something we could do. We didn't have the tech or the time to do it. So we used the approach of tiles instead. And it proved to be actually quite useful because with tiles and with precise metrics, we would be able to assure that things that are now history, but you probably heard of it, things like the infinite juking and chases that would never end.
Yeah.
Now with metrics, we can actually have a fighting chance against these issues, where a fully procedural terrain would be almost impossible to fix. So I tell you the industrial set, so the Macmillan estate maps are pretty much exactly as is as the prototypes we did at the very beginning.
I'm trying.
The important thing for us is that we had enough components for chases to be interesting. That we had enough components to hide. That's something that we tested a lot with, like vegetation, plants, hiding spots.
Right.
Lighting was especially challenging in the maps to make sure that there's enough spot to hide, and that it's not too obvious for the killer to find the survivor. And with all these components in, then we just built set that we thought were, spot on with the theme of the game that we wanted to create, and that they were, horror. And then that's it.
It never occurred to me that it was tiles. Which makes a lot more sense now. Whereas, like when I was getting the demo and asking questions, I was like, "Well, what do you mean the map's different every time?" And the guy was saying, "It's like, well, it's never really going to be exactly the same because things will move, things will change. The generators might not be in the same spots, and so will the chests." And I was like, "How does it do that every game that you'd play?" But that's never didn't cross my mind that would be the answer to that.
Exactly. So there is always like one tile that is a core to the map you're playing. So if you're playing one of the the junkyard and you play the garage, well, obviously the garage is going to be there. But then the rest is a database of different forest styles, different maze style, and they're procedurally chosen to be applied to the map, and then objects are randomly placed as well.
And what you said before with the infinite juking, or just like, there's other games where you could basically run in a circle and shoot at a horde. And as long as you're running in a circle and the horde doesn't catch you, you could just keep turning behind you and shooting at it. And you just follow this path and you just keep going forever.
Right.
And like, but because the map's always the same and you know it's going to be the same. So I could see like no one could develop a plan to do that in this version, in your game.
Well, with that's what we've discovered at the very early life cycle of the game. It's something that we haven't noticed within the studio, is the infinite juking and the infinite looping. And it's something that we learned to do. It's actually really, really interesting. It goes into level design analytics at that point. So we call that the chase economy. So there's actual data that we can use to analyze the economy of a chase. So the speed of a survivor, the speed of the survivor action, so vaulting over a window, for example, versus the speed of the killer and when bloodlust activates, and how this affects the economy and everything else. So there are some physical areas into the level that when you apply this economy would result into the survivor is impossible to catch.
Right.
So these are the areas that we fixed some time ago. We still discover some of them in the level, and then now we consider them as bugs. It's something that we need to fix. But yeah, essentially the analogy you just told is the same thing. It's just that in a multiplayer game we can't allow it.
It's not fun anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. As I'm a grunt, and I've had a lot of warehouse jobs in my history, And there's always one of the OSHA rules is that we can't leave pallets leaning up against walls. And anytime I go somewhere and I see a pallet leaning against a wall, I get mad and lay it down flat because it's an OSHA violation. And yet,
That's so good.
and yet, I am so psyched whenever I'm running, trying to escape a killer, and I see a pallet, and I'm like, "Oh, good! This will give me 2 seconds of leeway."
Yay for rule violation.
Where did the entity and the hooks come into play? Like, did that develop in the beginning, or was that part of the storyline of why are the killers chasing all the survivors?
Right. So in very early days, there was no story or lore really involved into any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it was just about pure mechanics and fun. So that's how we develop our game, and then we find a wrapper around it.
Okay.
So hooks were actually there at the very beginning. It was exactly what we needed, and then it evolved. Like at first, there was no hooks around the level. It was only the basement hooks.
Oh.
And actually, it wasn't even a basement. It was a cellar. So all of this changed and transformed, and we added the hooks everywhere in the level. I mean, it's all things that made more sense and more fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point when we created the wrapper and the lore around the game, we always wanted to work with an entity just like that. So it was a no-brainer for us to use the entity to explain all of what's going on into our game.
Mm-hmm.
And we still haven't explained everything. We trickle the story and the information with all the new content that we add to the game.
Right.
But this is things for the future.
Which the concept of elder gods and eldritch horrors has become really popular, in the past couple of years with the rise of all the Cthulhu merchandise we see around and whatnot.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's the fact that it's so alien to us.
Yeah.
For me, it's important that the entity, we can't really grasp why it's doing this.
Right. I did want to say, so I've been playing. Let's see. I bought the Halloween DLC when it came out with the Mike Myers and the shape and whatnot, and I forgot what date that was, but only yesterday did I discover a basement level to one of the houses.
Oh, okay.
Which I hadn't ever seen that before. It wasn't like the regular, cellar with the hooks. Like, oh, there's a generator down there, and there's storage in the basement of this house. Never found it before. No matter how many times I played that maps, already. Which even you think what's on the map, but I'm still discovering new stuff, which is really, really fun.
That's great.
When it comes to gaining the licenses for these characters you've gotten, which I know Mike Myers, the shape, was at the PAX East demo, but it didn't show up on PlayStation until last month, I think.
Yep.
And then we just recently got Leatherface, the cannibal, and there's a huge announcement for Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street, which sounds so much fun. What's it like getting the license for those? Are they up for grabs? Are you aware if they're obtainable, or do you have to approach them with the game saying, this is what we can do and this is how we'd incorporate your character? Do you have to plan ahead for that? I imagine you would, but what? I don't know what the stages would be.
It really depends on the license.
Uh-huh.
One thing that is true across all licenses is that obviously these characters have been created by passionate people,
mm-hmm.
and when you're working with them, you need to do a great job with them.
You need to respect them.
Yeah. So to respect that character, and that's obviously something that we love to do anyways, because we love these characters. We're all fan of of these horror character here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's usually how it works, is that we will approach the person who owns the license, or sometimes they will approach us, and then we start discussion on what we could do to integrate that franchise into our game, and then we all get excited.
Because this is something I haven't seen happen in a game before. It's if there was a Halloween game or a Nightmare on Elm Street game, but now you're getting these Legends of Horror into your game, which, you know, and now they're living in the world that you created, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's actually very thrilling for us, that's for sure.
Are there already more plans for more killers and survivors of that you've come up with and made?
Absolutely, that's for sure. We well, you know, in the different disciplines within the studio, design or having ideas is probably the thing that takes the less time. So we have a we have a big list of monsters and survivors and storytelling and levels that we want to do. Some of them are, you know, in different stages. Some are just ideas. Some are prototypes. Some are promising prototypes. So the only thing, you know, why it's not already a product, that obviously making a final product takes a lot of time,
right?
And we need to prioritize. And we're not a big team, so, you know, when issues arise or we want to create services for our community, this takes time and means that other things will not appear as fast.
Right.
But yeah, definitely it's something that we want to. Now we've released a couple of licensed killer. Are we only going to do this? Absolutely not. We want to create our own characters too. That's for sure.
Because the original 6, I believe, like, they all have very, what's the term I'm looking for? They're very, like, they're kind of a modern classic type of character. Like, you can see it and you can usually go, oh, right, the hillbilly. I know what that's from. And or like the swamp witch, the hag. I get it. I get what she is, because we've already had like some kind of variations of these, or like they're not. What am I trying to explain? They're not like foreign ideas to us.
Yeah.
Which like, I'm not explaining this well, but I like what you've made so far, and like I'm really curious, but also excited to wonder like if it's more like classic variations or more like modern updates on other like scary, freaky things.
Yeah, I see what you mean. What you mean. Yeah, and especially like the first couple original characters we did when we released the game, wanted to make sure that these characters are recognizable in their look, but also that you as a player you feel, you know what it is, that they're very recognizable as damn, what's with words today? I'm not finding it either. Like archetypes.
Yeah.
Archetypes of characters.
Yeah. Whereas like when I'm playing the game and like I hear the chainsaw from the distance, I go, well, it's just the hillbilly. I'll be okay. I'm not too worried. Like, it'll be annoying when he gets close to me, but I'm not really scared. Whereas like when I hear the bell, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be nervous the entire game now.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So as you were saying, paying attention to what's happening in game, or looking for glitches or things like that have to fix, or things that come up, or different tweaks that need to be made. Have you found that there's been specifically different things across each format? Like, are PC players different from PlayStation players?
Well, yes and no. There are some. I mean, most of the things that come from any of the SKUs, so console or PC, they're the same issues or very similar. But obviously, in hardware senses, I mean, they're very different.
Right.
I mean, PC, we have to deal with all sort of different graphics. So we'll have different issue, like, different drivers will cause different bugs. On console, it's always the same thing, but, we have to consider there's special things too. On console, we have, TCR, TRC, so things that come from Sony and Microsoft that needs to be in the game and needs to be respected. So that's different, and we need to be careful about that.
Okay.
But the main difference really is on console, it's controller only. So, obviously that's a big difference. Right. On PC, we have both controller and keyboard and mouse to take into account. And the other thing that's really, really different is the certification period that's on console. So it always takes a little bit more time to update the game and to go through all the certifications. And we can't be as nimble on bug fixing and balance on console than we are on PC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because like when I see the update notes come out and it's like, oh, we reduced one of the cooldown times from 2.9 seconds to 2.3 seconds, and I go, oh, okay, I get it, right. And I wonder like if these are things that are watched that are tweaked on my game, were the same things addressed on the other formats.
Right. Well, most balance fixes like the one you're talking about
Right.
are the same on all SKUs. Like
Okay.
the games are identical on console and on PC. There's not a special tweak. So the feedback comes from console player and PC player, and we want to make the game as balanced and have a high quality of life on both.
Okay, that makes sense. That was one of my big wonders. It's like, are we doing something completely different on Xbox than players are doing on PC?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, like there are some notable difference. As for example, Bill is not available on console, and a lot of players are asking like, why can't it happen? And this is a license issue. When we added Bill from Left 4 Dead on the PC game, the deal with Valve was this is going to be a PC exclusive.
Oh.
But that said, Bill's perk are available on console. So we're not changing the balance of the game. Everything is accessible. It's just the model and the actual character that is unavailable.
Okay.
Yeah. Another example is the Shrine of Secrets. So all the perks that are available to buy every week in the Shrine of Secrets are the same
on
PC and console. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Everything is the same.
I hadn't thought of any of this. Are you ever able to spectate players' games?
Oh, we do when they Twitch.
Okay.
So we don't have like a special camera that goes into your game so that we can look at what you're doing. Not yet, anyways.
Right.
But yeah, when we take great interest on.
It's like when a player
watching.
Streams.
Yeah, absolutely. On
Okay.
Twitch or YouTube videos and stuff like that. Yeah, we love doing that, especially when we release new content or a new patch. We like seeing what people make of it. And the community is great for that too. There's a lot of people that will send us, a tweet, or will go on Reddit or post on the forum on Steam and say, "Hey, look at that video, look at that move, look at that thing," and the team is looking at all that stuff.
Okay, because I was wondering how like you would get feedback or like see what players are currently up to. Like how are players handling like the having this combination of perks or.
Right. So there is this, which is a gut feeling approach, which is really important, but is only like I'd say 33% of how we balance.
Okay.
Another 33% is the so 32% is the gut feeling that we have. The 33% is gut feeling when looking at players play, and the other 33% is looking at data. Okay. So we actually have a data analyst here that works on getting data out of all the games that are played on all SKUs, so console and PC, and we can use this data to know when you're playing with that combination of perk, what's your win ratio and why, and who's the killer that's used the most right now, who's the most powerful one against the rank 15, things like that. We can do pretty much whatever we want as analysis with what we have in the game right now.
See, I have a couple of favorites, but I tend to go by the daily ritual as well. It's like, because that's going to force me, it's like, well, I'm going to try out the huntress, so I'm going to try out the trapper. Like normally I don't use the trapper, but if I bear trap 9 survivors, then I get a bonus.
Exactly. So that's good stuff.
It is
good stuff. And I mean, we say that a lot. I mean, don't hold up to your rank too much. If you're playing as a killer, try different killers because they're so fun. They're so different.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter if you lose more at the beginning when you start with a killer. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, like how people will treat games differently. Because to me, like, well, it's a game and I'm having fun with it. But then there's people who, legit get angry at me. Because just yesterday, I had a player message me on PlayStation because I wouldn't pick them up and hook them. I was playing the Hag and they were Lori, And I was like, Lori's got that perk where she can immediately escape out of my grasp. So why would I bother picking her up in the first place? I'll just let her bleed out. And they were furious with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. Like, like most of the things that we implemented in that game, they're not there to frustrate or, they exist for a reason.
Yeah.
And players use them in creative ways, maybe not always in the way you would like to, but that's fine. I mean, we should have fun, not...
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's about the extent of my questions, and that's pretty much time up for us right now. Thank you so much for doing this today.
No problem. Was fun.
I really appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. Thank you, Dave from Dead by Daylight. And then I had at least like 5 more questions after we were done and signed off, and he was out of time.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
That's typically how it goes.
Yep.
But,
yep.
I mean, we had the opportunity.
Because I was like, is there going to be a Wolfman? I want a Wolfman. And what's the deal with the nurse? Because I feel like her original intent was different from what she is now. And dialogue for Freddy, because there's like no dialogue in the game.
There's groans and grunts and and wahs, and
the survivors will scream or like whimper, and the killers will all like sound aggravated. Which the doctor's funny because when you stun the doctor with the pallet drop, he like the hag is like hey, and the chopper's like brr. But the doctor goes, it's hilarious.
He's sensitive.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Hopefully in the future, when they release some more stuff, we'd like to have him back on again. But that was really cool. I hope you guys liked listening to that after hearing like me talk about it for 2 past episodes.
I mean, we've talked about the game a lot in the past because it had a super interesting concept, something that we hadn't really seen much of before, and it was one of those, like, it was elusive for a little while. Like, we saw it at PAX but didn't get to play it, and then we talked about it for a little while, and then you actually got to try it at PAX last year, and then we had the opportunity to actually, get our hands on a copy of it and actually play, like, on console. And it was really the part that I found most interesting about your chat with him was the I'm like a listener. I get to react now. I don't get to talk directly, so I get to react to what you guys talked about. In that, the one thing I didn't really think about, and one thing that was also really surprising when I actually played the full game, was how much more to it than originally anticipated. Like, it was, I thought it was, you play as one of these people. They're all the exact same person. It doesn't matter which one you pick, and then there's a guy trying to kill you. And then, like, the blood web and all that stuff. Like, I had no idea how deep the game actually was, and it was a conscious effort on the team's behalf to put that blood web in to add longevity to it.
I'm about 6 levels away from prestiging Ace.
It's not a big deal.
Which, like, I realized when you prestige, that's when you get the bloody clothes. So if you see a character with like just completely bloody clothes, they've prestige.
They've played a lot.
Yeah,
they're good.
Yeah,
they're good to go. G to G. But it was one of those things that it's probably a good reason why I'm not a game developer, because it would have probably been a lot easier to just say, here's a couple survivors, here's a killer that can do some stuff, avoid him.
Yeah,
and don't die, and it probably would have been mildly successful. But the fact that you would, like, get people to continue playing, keep playing your game, keep using your product, keep streaming it, keep it interesting, so that it's not just, well, I guess I'll try and not die again.
And, like, you can just play the game by word of mouth.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
But then if you want, the option is there is to do research in it. So to go to the website and to, like, read the content that's, within the character descriptions in the game itself. And, like, learn more about what's going on, and the reasoning for it. Oh, so you mean the entity, like, plucked these killers out of whatever their existence is?
Right.
And the survivors are in a Groundhog's Day-esque, like, ring of always trying to survive and, like, get back to the campfire? Because they don't get to escape. They get put back in a map.
Right.
And they have to try and escape again. And the entity's just, like, feeding off of their emotions and their fear of getting hooked over and over and over and over again. So they're legit. The characters are legitimately just dying or escaping into eternity. Which,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
okay.
That's pretty pleasant.
They're probably
to think
fine.
about. I mean, there's no repercussions.
At least we're entertained.
now I know why I don't have Bill.
Right. Yep.
I can't
Bill
play.
from
Yeah, the Left 4 Dead.
Yep. Ammo here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say ammo here.
And just a good. And it's cool to know because we got to talk to him a little briefly at New York Comic Con last month, which was already a month ago, which is mildly shocking. And they were really cool guys, and I'm really glad that you guys were able to get that set up and continue essentially our conversation so that other people can hear it too. Really cool. It just play the stuff, talk to developers. Honestly, like you get to find out so much of this neat shit about their games and what exactly went into it, because you don't think about like, oh, do they have an analyst analyzing their games and play styles and like what's good and what. It's just.
Can you imagine?
Yep. Good stuff. Good get on that. That was good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We did
Proud
it
of
together.
you. Proud of you. I didn't do shit.
You helped me find the Dead by Daylight booth in New York.
Yeah. I thought they were gonna say at PAX, and I was like, it's kind of hard to miss at PAX. But super fun.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. Well, with the time we have remaining, let's talk about some other happenings here. There was some big news.
Yeah.
In the comic book world, which to the uninitiated such as myself, who it doesn't have too much experience with this particular subject, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. Like, I'm going to be questioning you on it.
There's part of me that wants to say like, well, this kind of thing happens all the time.
Right.
It's people go back and forth and like, oh, it's just another one of those, instances.
Right.
But then I think about it more and look into it more, and I go, "Oh no, this is a very big deal.
More.
this is a huge deal."
Because word dropped earlier this week that Brian Michael Bendis, arguably one of the more influential writers, historically very Marvel, he's with DC now.
Right.
Which, has he ever been with DC?
I don't think no.
So he's never, to our knowledge,
right.
He hasn't written for DC up until now.
Correct.
Which is pretty big, because typically most names, like, they tend to write for everything.
On his own page, where it has, like, a list of, his history and what he's written, like, DC doesn't show up anywhere on here.
Right.
He did some work for Caliber Comics, which is an independent company, and then he did some work for Image, and then it was to Marvel, and that's where it's been ever since, like, the year 2000. Mm-hmm. So about 17 years, he's been like essentially almost shaping what Marvel is today. Compare in like let's call it Marvel's like modern Renaissance, and not to confuse it with its Golden Age, Silver Age,
right?
Everything else that has built it up until this point. The past 17 years of what Bendis is doing and like taking charge of the Ultimate line. We wouldn't have Ultimate Spider-Man without Bendis. So, like, a lot of things he's done have been not comic booky, if that makes sense. Okay. So we have a brand new Spider-Man comic book, and what are we going to do? We have to tell his origin story. Well, how long is that going to take? Like 5 pages? Great, now he's Spider-Man.
Right.
Let's get to the fun stuff. Mm-hmm. It took 8 issues before he even put on the costume. Right.
In Ultimate?
In Ultimate Spider-Man, yeah.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, he Ultimate Spider-Man Peter Parker didn't wear the costume for at least 8 issues.
Right.
Because Bendis had to like build the world. He built like who Peter Parker is, who the Kingpin is, who Aunt May and Mary Jane are. He was constructing all that. Because it's supposed to be like a new updated retelling. The Ultimate line is different from the OG 616 Marvel. And then but that was enough for him, so he would write a bunch of other comic books too. So he'd write Daredevil, and he'd be like, let's we have too much of Daredevil fighting ninjas on rooftops. Let's put Matt Murdock back in the court, because he's a lawyer.
That's his job.
And so now he writes 10 issues of Matt Murdock being a lawyer in a courtroom. We don't see a shred of Daredevil for 10 issues. It's like, oh, now I'm buying Matt Murdock lawyer comic book. So as I say, like, these things aren't very comic booky. But this is Bendis-y. Mm. This is like what his it's one of his what he's noted for.
Right.
I can't think of like the actual term I'm looking for.
Like one of his staples. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
And like, but it's still good storytelling. It might not be what you want, but he's building a world. And with that available to him in that format, nothing's really going to get in his way, like, say, an event or a crossover event. So, like, if he's trying to, make a good lawyer story with Matt Murdock, and then imagine being like, oh, well, now you also got to include Atlantis attacking.
Right.
Because over here in Avengers, we decide Atlantis is going to attack New York. And
it's obviously going to affect Matt Murdock.
And it's like, I'm busy, you guys. Will you cut the shit? And, but like, he didn't have to deal with that, which is one of my complaints with Marvel a lot. It's like, can you imagine trying to, like, you're making your comic book chops, you're trying to get up there and get recognized, and you're like, yo, I've got an amazing Heroes for Hire story. It's not even Luke Cage and Iron Fist. It's the Daughters of the Dragon, and they've got Shang-Chi with them, and it's gonna be a great story. And then they go, yeah, what if World War Hulk happens? And you go, what? Excuse me?
Just completely uproots.
Just put the Hulk in your thing. You
gotta Hulk it.
This is laid out for 18 issues.
No,
we're
gonna
exactly. Hulk. It's gonna be like women empowerment. It'll be great.
It's great, but if you could throw some Hulks in there.
So this happens all the time.
Yep. Right now, like with DC, it's happening right now with Metal.
Yeah.
That's like the big crossover event happening right now, which. And I was about to make a reference, you got your peanut butter in my chocolate. Because, like, reading, issue of Justice League and, like, the latest issue of Green Lanterns, or Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, like, picks up, like, okay, Green Lantern's fighting this guy. And if you don't read Metal, none of it's going to... And the thing is, like, I read the first 2 issues of Metal, and I was like, I didn't read any of the preludes, any of the prequel, any of the tie-ins, or anything like that. Yeah. I was like, I like Snyder and Capullo. I'm going to pick up their shit. It's Batman. It's great. I had no idea what's going on. I have no clue what's happening. I don't know the names. Like, all the characters look really cool, but I don't get it.
So one of Brian Michael Bendis' other trademarks is the term shaking the ant farm. So it's like you're
just rude.
Your sibling comes into your room, grabs your ant farm, shakes the shit out of it, and then leaves. And that's like in the complaint department, that's one of the things that he does. He comes up with an idea at like the Marvel Writers Summit and goes, all right, what if the Skrulls invade? And he comes up with a way to include the Skrulls. And one of the complaints that come up is that, like, he doesn't know how to end that story. So he'll step into your Heroes for Hire book and shake it up and then leave.
Okay, bye.
Like, you're left with this now. By the way, we killed Missy Knight or something, so good luck with that. It's like, what did you have to? What do I do now? He's like, I don't know, but the Secret Invasion's done now, so good luck with that.
We cool, right?
And he's a little notorious for this. Whereas, like, Quesada would be like, all right, that sounds good. We'll do this event now because Bendis had this idea, and it'll be a crossover, and we'll sell a lot of books. It's like, but I don't want to sell. I mean, I want to sell a lot of, but I mean, I wanted to do my thing,
right?
Not have to do his thing. And personally, I felt Siege could have ended better. I liked Siege. The storyline was good. I was a fan of it because it had my Dark Avengers in it. It had Hammer instead of Shield. Norman Osborn was in charge. I'm on board. I like this.
Right.
And it was just like, Thor's going to hit the bad guy with lightning. Well, he's immune to it. Thor's going to hit a bad guy with lightning again. Oh, man, that killed him this time.
Sounds about right.
What? And I was like...
It was the good lightning.
And I was like, that could have been better. I talked to Mark Morales about this because he was inking the issue when I bought a page off of him. And I was like, well, what about Phobos? He's like, yeah, everyone says Phobos could have done it. Because Sentry killed Ares. Ares was Phobos' dad.
Right.
Just ripped him in half in the Siege storyline. And I was like, well, what if Phobos just used his fear power on Sentry and made him give up? And he could get his dad to. It's like, nope, it's just Thor. We're making Thor cool again. Thor did it.
Yeah.
And then later on, they had
I haven't read Siege.
it's okay. They had like a newer Dark Avengers line where they did stuff with Norman Osborn again, and it didn't end as good as I hoped it would have.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah. So Bendis has like one of the longest running writer to artist, longest running series to note with Ultimate Spider-Man.
Right, with him and Bagley.
Yeah.
Which I've read the first omnibus because it warrants multiple. I've read the first one completely, and it was great. It was. I love the storyline. Like it's a nice, at the time, it's a fresh take on Spider-Man, which was really neat. Like, and especially coming from someone who didn't really understand the Ultimate Universe, it's like, wait, so I remember the first time I heard Spider-Man. Spoilers. The first time I heard Spider-Man was going to die.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's going to shake it. And people were like, no, well, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
And are you kidding me? They're going to kill Peter Parker, and there's going to be a new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
He'll come back.
It's just the Ultimate Universe.
Something will happen. It's not the one that makes, that is important.
Yeah, it's what's the difference? Like I didn't quite, and then when it was like finally explained to me, I was like, okay, I guess, but still, like over 100 issues of well over 100 issues, right? Something like that. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, it was up to 150.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of old, like regardless of whether it's legitimate, like the regular or the secondary one, you're still going to be connected to that character. But
he even like included a lot of the other Ultimate either
people
between miniseries or the Ultimate events that were on. All his work on Daredevil, and I liked a lot of his. It's not quite independent stuff. I'm a big fan of Powers, so I liked all the work he did on Powers, which was Image, and then flipped over to Icon, which
Marvel
was
Icon.
owned by Marvel. Which means then like his Powers characters could still like swear and stuff.
right. So as far as like the significance, because essentially what we're getting at, Bendis, it was announced that Bendis is going to be writing for DC,
Right.
which is big because he's a huge name. He's obviously well established. I imagine they'll trust him with anything.
The amount of work he's able to do is a little insane. Because I'm trying to think of how many writers, like how many books they'll put out. Like an artist can really do one book, maybe two if they're insane or something. Whereas writers can do like up to 4. I think I know 4 is kind of the max for most of them who like really make a career out of doing a lot of work. And I think Bendis used to average 6.
I can't even imagine juggling that many stories in your head and then keeping them interesting.
Between doing Spider-Man, Daredevil, Alias, Jessica Jones, Powers, and then later on he picked up Avengers, and he was I don't even know what his time frame was. There's other articles that have looked this up, and I'm sure have like detailed analytics and everything. But
who's got time for that?
One of the things I liked was he would explain. He's like, "Oh, I would just write what I want to write," and he would just stay ahead of the game that way. And he works late at night when no one can bother him, and he has like an off-site like office with no internet connection, so he won't get distracted. He can just write from like midnight until 3 a.m. or whatever, or however long he has to be writing for. And he'll get like 6 issues ahead on Daredevil. He's like, I feel like writing Daredevil, so he'll complete 6 issues in advance, which is 6 months of work, and then switch to the next one and be like, well, now I feel like writing Spider-Man, and he'll write his 7 issues of Spider-Man out, and now he's set for 7 months. In the meantime, he's like, well, let's kick back into Powers, and this is how like he managed to stay pretty much on the ball for deadlines.
I can't even imagine like juggling that much information. Like I remember like when Brian K. Vaughan started doing Paper Girls, and I'm sitting here thinking like, well, he's already doing Saga. How could you possibly do another book while you're writing something as epic and deep and just like heavy as Saga? Like I imagine
how do you keep notes on all the characters in Saga?
Exactly.
First of all,
yeah, right. And then come up with new ones, and then props to Fiona Staples for really just putting those characters down to like visualize. Like it's unbelievable. Every single issue, it's like, how do you even come up with that? And then And then he's writing Paper Girls. He's also writing We Stand on Guard. He was writing Private Eye. And they're all great.
Yeah.
Like We Stand on Guard didn't end quite the way I wanted it to, which at the end of the day,
Right.
it can't all end the way I want it to. But like it's just they're all great stories. As far as he's still writing, he's not writing Private Eye, right? He's doing other stuff on Panel Syndicate, right? Isn't he writing something with Marcus?
I don't know if he's making new stuff or if there's other people that
Marcos
have
Martin,
now,
that's his name.
I think other people might have joined Panel Syndicate by now.
Right.
So I don't know if he's still putting work on there, but like it was him and Marcos Martin that like initiated Panel Syndicate.
And then he's still writing Paper Girls. Eisner winning Paper Girls. Eisner winning and like every award winning saga. It's still great. It's just the keeping up the quality of work and just to compare like Bendis is also doing that type of stuff, just cranking out quality work. Just and then also being like an icon in the industry. Like I have to go to the show and sign books for the next 10 hours, and I'm also just I have all these ideas. I can't even fathom it.
One of the reasons I miss Wizard magazine was because they had pretty cool articles on him. Like they would do some interviews and like an expose kind of deal. And I think that's where I learned he didn't get his driver's license until he was well into his 30s because he didn't need to.
Right.
He's like, just ride a bicycle. I ride my bike down the comic shop, then I ride at home. What do I need? So he didn't have a license to drive for a while. And there was something else. What else was there? There's also, he started off doing a lot of like noir and slice of life kind of books where his originals were like his own art was almost drawing from pictures and doing a lot of dialogue and people talking about like their experiences in life. And then he went to a lot of the noir and detectives and cops and dirty rats and they steal money and shoot them up and
uncomfortable books.
Yeah. But it was always dialogue heavy because that's where he's giving you the story, and he's trying to make the people you're reading talk like real people, which we have. I think we've addressed the Bendis bubbles in the past.
Yeah,
when the writing's very Bendisy, and friend Chris, who's been on the show, had a good explanation for it. He's like, I want to read more Bendis books, but I don't have the time. Just give me the story. Where characters was talking, go, so then Dr. Doom came through the door. The door? Yeah, this door. That door right there? Yeah, the door. Okay, what about it? So Dr. Doom comes through the door. Doom, like Dr. Doom was here? Yeah, he came through the door. That door. And these are all like two characters yammering back and forth. Right. And Chris would be like, you could just put that in one bubble, just cut all that out. It's fine. But when you talk with your friend, like, I'm sure I interrupted you 3 times already this episode. And that's how they'll have to illustrate a page.
Right.
And if you're drawing that, you have to leave plenty of space above the person's head.
Yeah, you really got to account for those bubbles.
So let's see. He would do some crime drama. He would do web-slinging teenager. He would do teams of adults that fight bad guys and their life's at stake all the time. He did gritty detective and junkie apartment.
Mutants.
And he did a bunch of mutant stuff, and also was one of the leaders of the diversity that Marvel has now between making Miles Morales and Riri Williams, in elevating Jessica Jones to what she's become. Has her own TV show now and everything. And so every website is speculating of, what's he going to write for DC? What's he going to make? And I was thinking, who's he going to bring with him? Like, is he going to bring Bagley along? Is Bagley going to start working for DC?
Right.
Would that be neat? Would Sarah Pichelli join him too after because she helped him make Miles Morales Spider-Man. And I was trying to think of like what archetypes he would be remaking.
Can you imagine?
But that's almost like downplaying his talent of being like, well, he'll do another court drama and then he'll do another junkie apartment. It's like, I'm sure he has plenty of other ideas because he's able to play to the characters.
The world's gonna be his oyster. The entire DC universe is gonna be up for grabs for him. And also, I'm speculating 100% here, but you heard it here first. With other talents who are going to be available soon, because their books are ending.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like, the big two would be stupid not to try and pick them up. Can you imagine a Brian Michael Bendis and Ryan Otley book?
Oh, shit. You son of a bitch.
Right? Because like Otley tweeted, someone said, like, what are you doing after Invincible ends? And he's like, you'll know soon. Like, you'll find out. We'll see. It's just, I wouldn't mind reading that.
Somehow, Bendis and Otley would elevate, like, Blue Devil above any other hero in DC.
Like, if you could have a Bendis and Otley book, what would you want them on? Like...
Yeah. I'd have to pour through some material to figure that out.
Yeah, that's... we gotta think about this.
And it's not like there's too much legacy to deal with, because that's one of the things he just left at Marvel was them trying to make their legacy issues, their legacy editions.
Right.
And DC just recently rebooted, so it's
rebirthed.
So there's a lot that's already changed recently.
Yep.
That doesn't really need to be changed, or if there's a character that hasn't been addressed just yet, he would have the opportunity, to do that new world building that he's good at.
Yep.
But they already made Alan Scott Gay, and they made, even a while ago, Blue Beetle Jaime became Hispanic, and that was even before the New 52. But
right.
A lot of these diversity options that Bendis kind of looks for, some of them have already happened, and he might be able to give new breath into that.
And even then, with the upcoming Doomsday Clock, for all we know, DC could be restarting all over again.
Yeah.
There's ample opportunity for slate wiping when you're using the Watchmen and like Dr. Manhattan, which I'm pumped for. Like Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, because it's Gary Frank on the book, right? I think on Doomsday Clock, and Gary Frank, in my opinion, like what. And I say that I'm the one who realized who Gary Frank was. Gary Frank is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
He did Batman Year One, Earth One.
Okay.
The hardcovers that they come out with, like they're not issues, they're books.
Yeah, Earth One.
He did Earth One with Jeff Johns. Yeah, it is Gary Frank on Doomsday Clock, and it's just unbelievable, unbelievable artist. He's so good, and it just. I want to just devour more of his work, and he's going to be on Doomsday Clock, which is going to just be, it could be garbage, and I'll still probably love it because it's just Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, and I haven't read a Jeff Johns book in ages. Feels like it's been a long time.
Well, he's been creatively directing so much.
Yeah,
there's not much room left to actually write.
But
he's way up there on the importance level of DC right now.
I know a lot of people are skeptical of Doomsday Clock just because, we all know what happened with Before Watchmen.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you continue something that was so good to begin with? But I'm pumped. I'm hopeful for the upcoming future of DC, even though I don't really understand metal. But I'm still, I've been digging Green Lantern more and more. Especially, like, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, I've been digging a lot more. Green Lanterns is still okay. Justice League is getting better, which is kind of a relief.
I'm hopeful. Because I couldn't tell, again, it's just speculation as to how many fewer books was Bendis working on at Marvel. Was it by his choice, or was he just becoming less popular, where there's a lot of new blood kind of coming up, taking the jobs? Because there's even stuff by his choice where he's like, I don't want to go near this. So the entire Secret
Empire?
Secret Empire. Mm-hmm. He's like, I want no part of Secret Empire.
Right.
And even the books he was on had no part of Secret Empire until he left them.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's Nick Spencer's bag. But
I wonder if there were other writers who could have tried to play that game. It's like,
you're going to write what we tell you to write.
I don't want to put scrolls into my Squirrel Girl book, okay? Can I just write Squirrel Girl?
Yeah. Good old comic books. Who knew there was so much politics?
Right.
But it should be dope, and to put it as bluntly and stupidly as possible. So when a huge writer like that comes over like for the first time in a new publisher, DC, oh my God, it's a shot in the arm that they desperately need. Blah, blah,
And
blah.
it's an exclusive contract.
Yeah.
So he's getting paid.
Oh yeah, they're throwing money at him.
And he, and I loved Power so much. I mean, that ended a while ago, but any chance he would have to work on his own stuff is it's not an option anymore.
Right.
I mean, until his contract's up.
Yep.
Which I always wondered about that. It's like if you come up with a good idea, can you just not do
table
anything at all?
Pray no one else comes up with something similar.
Because there's been companies where it's like, even if you have an idea and like create a character for yourself, like we own that because you're currently under contract for us. Imagine that.
Right.
Ugh.
Especially for someone as creatively, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you got to get it out,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
It'll get lost in your head.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
It should be dope. To
Pay attention to your local comic shops in the
realistic.
future.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes out. What starts making news, making headlines.
Read some comics.
Yeah.
They're fun. This past week, I was like, man, there's nothing. I only had a couple books. Like I had Justice League and Hal Jordan, Green Lantern Corps.
Mhm.
So I just snagged the fourth trade of Sex Criminals. I was like, oh yeah, I like Sex Criminals.
Mhm.
Fourth trade's out. I'll pick that. I read it in a day. Read it in one sitting. God, I love that book.
I realized Wildstorm was its own comic book again,
I had no idea.
and so I bought the trade because that had just came out that day.
Mm-hmm.
Like the book's up to issue 10 or something, but I was like, I'll get volume 1 and see where we're at.
Right.
And like they restart the Authority and Wildcats and them, and I was like, I'm on board for this. Let's take another spit on this coaster.
You
I'm
got
okay
me.
with that.
Those damn comic books. Anyways, so that's it's gonna probably be about all of our time for this week. Big thanks for Dave for stopping by and giving us. I'm taking credit too, giving us some time to talk about making a massively successful video game about killing people and surviving.
Mm-hmm.
But that was super rad. I'm glad that you guys were able to make that happen. And then let's go maybe read. Now I just want to read comics. We're just going to go read comics now. Prep for Thanksgiving parties.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to do it. So I guess until next week, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And this has been episode 295. There it is, 295 of Opinions May Vary.